Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good time zone, wherever you are. I think I almost should be okay with light. I think I might need a little bit more light. Should be enough. Just a smidge. Okay. Apologies for some doggy ASMR for a moment, as she would not leave me alone until I gave her treats, so somebody is munching away on pumpkin. Okay. Sewing. Yep. Today I am doing smocking. Something that I don't think I've done before, at least not extensively or recently. It's one of those things where it's like, I understand how it works, and it's the sort of thing that I know my grandmother did when I have baby clothes and stuff like that she's done like that. So theoretically, I don't know. It's one of those weird skills that I might have done as a kid and just don't remember now. I've definitely done weirder things. So, we'll see. I have a book. We're good. I just have a lot of horizontal gathering to do because I do not have a fancy smocking machine. So I doubt that. I don't remember if we had any specific brands or anything we purchased, that were purchased for me as a kid. I don't remember any particular ones. I remember if we did fancy stuff, somebody made it. Otherwise, it was just to the department store. I mean, my grandparents had 4 granddaughters, roughly my age, so if they got something for one, they would have had to get it for everybody. Yeah, fortunately with this fabric, the reason why I chose to try doing a sample on this fabric is I have a little bit of it left, and I want to use something that I'm cutting off of. But it's hard to see. You can kind of see easier here. The horizontals are technically a stripe, so I didn't have to put a full spot. Usually you draw like a grid, but with dots, and I decided this would be a much faster way for me to test this stuff out. So I can't apparently do not today, so trying things. But yeah, smocking is you see it most often on little kids' clothes now, like christening gowns or things like that more than anything. It's kind of where everything gets gathered up, and then there's fancy stitching done across all of the gathering. So it's a technique that was really popular in different time periods, and therefore it's something that I kind of feel like at some point I need to practice, learn, whatever, because it's useful for late 19th, early 20th century. It's useful for 16th century. So, I should just spend some time on this skill. I might be making something very soon with it. We'll just see how this goes. I don't know. English North American smocking. My book differentiates, but frankly, I don't entirely grasp what the difference is. It was like using a smocking pleater, and then it shows you all the smocking stitches, and then it shows you English smocking, which is kind of what I'm pretty sure I'm doing, and it shows a bunch of weird artistic versions of it. I think, North American smocking is the one where you're actually gathering as you go, rather than the stitches over it. Okay, so no, English smocking. Yes. North American's more like puckery weirdness. Cool. No, all of this stuff will be hidden. So this is the wrong side of the fabric that I'm gathering along. It said that you can, there's, obviously two different ways to gather, which is you can go even and use the dots, and so your threads will be in the middle, or you can do take smaller little stitches and your thread will sit at the bottom of your sort of undulation of gather, which is, I have no idea which will be better for the purposes of the type of smocking I'm doing, so that's one of the reasons. So, yeah, mine will be more of the honeycomb, I think. I was looking at some of the pleated ones, too, but I think for this one I just need to do a very straightforward, let's gather this, and then make some fancy stitches over it, and see how it goes. Oh, yeah, I have played around with the smocking machine before. My biggest complaint is, of course, the fact that, you're limited in what you can put through it width-wise. Like, you can go forever, but you only have, something that's that wide, which is fine. I guess it'd be going this way, which is fine if you're doing a really small piece or you can stitch it to something. But in the case of, say, all of the really beautiful, Liberty of London smocked dresses of the late 19th century, early 20th century, they're not in separate pieces like that. So it just seems really a lot, as much effort as it would be either way. Smocked mackerel. So yeah, essentially this little thing here is just going to be my little sample. So I'm just going to try and do all of the different stitches that it's got in this book, just to try things out, because I have a feeling most of the ones that I'd be looking to replicate would be pretty straightforward. I'm not looking to do crazy inventive stuff, I doubt. Yeah, I was looking at the all the Liberty ones, and they're all really lightweight silks or something in that range. That's where I'm doing it on. This is technically a corded silk, but it's been washed, so it's much softer, and it's pretty thin. And I've got two other textiles that are likely to be used for the purposes of smocking, and a lot of temptation to do others, because the stuff that you would be doing, this genre of turn of the century sort of stuff, also is heavily what inspired the artistic dress, dress reform, all that sort of stuff, is what heavily inspired the artwork of the era that therefore then went on to inspire Lord of the Rings elves clothing. So so you're this seems multifacetedly useful, and not just historic, but also in some more, I don't want to say necessarily full-on cosplay, because I don't know why, for whatever reason, when I think cosplay, I always think you're copying things, not necessarily screen accurate, but trying to, and I'm what if you're just kind of, I guess it's still kind of cosplay, even if you're not necessarily playing a particular character, but I don't know. So I was that'd be fun. I would like to do some of that. So at this point, it's just probably a couple hours of me doing this, unfortunately. I'm pretty fast at stitching, but still a lot of lines to get across. I probably should have just drawn all of them, but I'll be okay. I can only be so far off with the lines that the fabric provides. Damn, I end up looking like the Great Pumpkin. Oh, neat. I do love pumpkin-colored fabrics. It's one of those colors that I think pairs with a lot of other tones really well, and you end up with very interesting color combinations, but it doesn't get used a lot. I know there's machine ways that they do smocking and all of that nowadays, but not just the run it through the smocking machine thing, but do the whole thing by machine. Still Sometimes this fabric fights back words slightly. With hand stitching, I learned. Think you'll be good, and then you'll hit it just wrong. Oh, wait, that's what it is. Right. 5 rows. It doesn't show up like anything on the screen. Like, it doesn't look like I've done anything. Just hope the knots hold. I have Beauty and the Beast stuck in my head because it's been all over TikTok this morning with the ABC Live version. Which, like, I haven't sat down to, like, watch a great deal of it, just trying to, like, every once in a while I catch parts, I'm like, oh, they're really good at that. Really beautiful voice, okay. Did I get snow this week? We got snow on Saturday night, so the storm hit us before it hit other people, carried on its way. So, technically, the mountains got, like, feet. We only got a few inches. So. Nice. I know nothing about spinning wheels despite owning a really lovely antique one that I know the concept of. Like, I remember going over it with my mother to try and figure out how it worked. Like, she had been taught at some point, sort of thing, but hadn't really used it. So it's like, I understand the premise of it. And I've seen people use them. But and ours is complete except for, like, there's 1 or 2 broken pieces, but all the parts are there. I just need to, like, glue the things back together. So then it'll be good to go. I think the difference is I just don't necessarily know, like, the names of everything, because my mother definitely didn't know those. I was like, this tuning fork thing, I don't know. Oh, nice. Second-hand at half price. Cool. To stop and drink some tea because I haven't had any tea yet this morning, so I will need that shortly. I was just smart and got most of this set up last night so that way I wasn't doing it this morning and running late. I also made sure I didn't sit down in my chair this morning. I was like, nope, eat breakfast, immediately go upstairs, don't sit down in your work chair, because then you'll just be there. Then I won't get up. This thread is just a thread that I had around. I don't know what size of thread is going to be best for the gathering purposes. I haven't really looked into that. So this is just, like, the Gutermann silk that I happen to have, and I never really use that stuff in color, so I was like, it'll be a good, like, use up situation. So, yeah. So I'm thinking that, like, because my brain wants to be, oh, you're gathering, you should use your heavier weight silk, but that feels like overkill when I'm going to then be reinforcing, in a sense, everything. I do have heavier weight stuff that's actually technically yarn for the stuff to go over. So I'm excited about that. It's silk. It's just that the amount of heavyweight thread that you need, which is, looking at the originals, not button twist, but it's not quite as like heavily twisted as most of the threads. It looks more like this, which is the same stuff that embroidery was commonly done with. So I actually got this to do that sort of early 20th century embroidery to test this out. And so I have a whole bunch of colors of it. So yeah, like I've got, what have I got for colors? I've also got an ivory. But these were the colors that I ended up with. Because these are colors that I, would normally do things in. So they have a really nice range. It's lace weight, and I'm like excited about getting to do things with that, because I can do embroidery with it. And one of the fabrics that's a possibility that I have is that pumpkin tone with that one. So I will probably be doing that. I don't think you remove the gathering thread. I don't know. It doesn't. I haven't really read the book. I just kind of glanced over the pictures and read a few sections. So if anyone's ever done this, like, and I'm gonna look like other stuff up too. This was just me doing experimentation hands-on, because like there's two different ways you can approach learning something, which is to sit down and try and absorb all of the information you possibly can about absolutely everything and then try it. Or you can get enough information to get a concept of what you're doing, do some testing of it, and then go back and spend some time doing more research, which is what I prefer to do, because then I have an idea of what the heck I'm looking at, because that's always my problem with like going and spending a ton of time with researching first, is that I feel like I may not necessarily grasp what the actual like motions are or things like that, or I may end up in a situation where I have a problem and I wouldn't have like noticed that the answer was sitting in front of me, and so I have to rewatch everything. So this stuff is Luminance from Knit Picks. I tried to set up one of those fancy, you get a amount of every sale, but it was like, you need to have your own website, not one like one that's actually registered to you. And I'm like, I have a YouTube channel, please let me. I'm tempted to like shove that in there and see if they let me do that, but the way it made it sound on the sign up, that it would not let me, because I don't have my own actual website. Like, I don't know. We'll see. That was just the one that came up when I was looking for. There's a whole bunch of companies that do silk yarn. That was just one I was looking. Essentially, lace weight silk yarn is what you're looking for. I'm sure there are other people that have similar stuff, especially if you're in a different country and, have a lot more range of things. Oh, was I that far off? Or am I off now? Oh, I was just that far. Okay. Well, we'll correct. It's fine. Yeah, I wouldn't have thought of necessarily using heavier weight yarn either. Except that when I did I've done a couple different types of embroidery for this era, and it was like, this requires such weird heavy stuff, and so I've been looking for a while, and I can't remember what I think I came across it looking for embroidery thread, and I was like, I wonder, okay. But didn't find it in color at the time, just found the raw stuff, so. Yeah. Researching, not taking any of it in, and then just going, yeah, that's exactly what happens. If I spend, at some point, you reach kind of a mental capacity. Like, I have a very good, I want to say a very good imagination, because it's not that. I have the ability to see things really visibly in my head. What is it, hyperphantasia or whatever it is, where I can see things in 3 dimensions. I can manipulate them. Like, I fully can grasp and understand things in my head. Like, I can picture myself putting an entire thing together. And we'll find where problems are doing it. But if there's kind of like fuzzy spots in the process that I don't grasp, then, it makes it more difficult. And though this seems very straightforward, because I can't quite see some of the, I can kind of imagine it, and the pictures are, pretty straightforward, but I'm like, I don't see any potential problems with this. It looks so simple that it worries me. Yeah, it's something to do with, I think it's hyperphantasia or whatever. So basically everybody's head works completely differently. There's a whole range of, it's one of those, picture a purple apple or sort of test sort of thing. So everybody's got a different, somewhere on the range in terms of both visual and audio of how they deal with things in their head. So some people don't visualize, period. Some people, like me, I can literally, the way I like to explain it is my dreams work fully like a movie. I actually am usually the camera operator in them. And I can do that during my waking hours too. And then other people will see things in grayscale, or they will see things but fuzzy. It's more the idea of the thing. So there's a whole range of stuff. And then some people hear voices in their head, not a crazy way, but you hear yourself talk. Some people don't. They think in more abstract thoughts. So there's not a normal way. There's just, presumably from what I've discovered, the reason why I'm good at a lot of what I'm good at and can figure out and solve problems, especially when it comes to fitting of clothing and garments, is because I can see everything. I can visualize in my head, if I pull here, the fabric will do this, the wrinkles will do this. So I don't have to physically do that on a person. I just see the whole thing moving and shifting, and then I can literally go back and forth between 3D and 2D pattern really fast. Oof. Yeah, I have very realistic dreams with unrealistic situations. And I started lucid dreaming when I was pretty young, because I had so many nightmares as a kid and a teenager. I started early, which I can only assume is just overactive brain. I don't know. I didn't particularly have a traumatic childhood. Difficulties in my teenager, sure, but whatever. But I started lucid dreaming when I got into these situations that I was uncomfortable being in, and in one dream, and I specifically remember the dream, I flew, and suddenly my dream was no, you can't fly anymore, and I was like, the heck I can't, and I forced it, and then I suddenly consciousness. And so I don't always lucid dream, but I can, the moment I'm uncomfortable, but my brain has figured out it's a lot easier to go from dreaming uncomfortably to pulling myself out of the physical body that I'm in the dream, to being viewing from the top like it would be a film camera. And so usually most of my dreams, if it's anything more intensive or anything like that, I am watching it happen, not actually being part of it, which the stress level goes so far down then. Because my brain's still but you still need to learn from these situations, and we still need to figure out and process these emotions and process what's happening to you. So you still need these dreams. You can't just wake yourself up out of them or literally fly away anytime you want to. And I'm like, okay, that's fine. I can watch someone else have it happen. Which is one of the reasons I don't like watching stressful, media intensive, things with dramatic background music or whatever, because I'm my brain already dreams these things. I don't need I don't need somebody else to come up with them for me. Yeah, I remember my first nightmare ever. It was before I was 5 years old, and I distinctly remember it very clearly. And I'm well, I remember waking up being well, now I'm screwed. I've got one there because I understood the concept of nightmares. I just never had one because child. I remember that, and I have no idea where it came from. It was basically Happy Tree Friends. I came up with that back all the way in like 1989. Oh. Yeah, I definitely didn't. I had a lot of problems with nightmares as a kid. But I came up with a lot of coping mechanisms. I had a lot of. I've just generally been one of those people. It's like, yeah, I went through a lot of things and had a lot of weird stuff, and I've just learned coping mechanisms. I've just gotten really good at coping mechanisms. Learning what works. Can't make the thing go away, but can figure out how to deal with it. We're getting there. I have no idea how far down I'm gonna go. I think it's also one of those things where if I like get far enough, and then I can like play around with some of the top and then turn it back over and go back down. So I just need probably enough coverage at the top that I can do a few rows and then back and forth. Yeah, what doesn't kill you gives you weird coping mechanisms. That's yeah. Not always the healthiest ones, but we come up with plenty of things. I feel like that's the bigger skill. It's not, for me at least, it's not coming up with coping mechanisms. It's taking the time to recognize whether or not it's a healthy coping mechanism or not. And adjusting it if it's not. Right, because it's like I could gather that, but I'm feeling even if I just gathered like the top 5, it would be too close. So I think I need at least another 4. Each thread gives me 2. So, ooh, got a book on smocking for your birthday. Cool. This is some book that I got. I think I inherited it from my grandmother, but it is quite like prolific. It's just the Art of Manipulating Fabric, which is a very long-standing popular book, and with the range of that sort of stuff. I looked at it too hard and my brain was like, magic eye. Bailey. If she really needs it, she'll ask a second time. There's a good chance she's just being demanding. Yeah, I've tried lots of different types of embroidery. This just seemed kind of an extension of it. Yeah. Brains deal with trauma in many different ways. Sometimes you just need a friend with you. Honestly, considering it, like, put it this way, I went through most of my, like, I don't want to say childhood traumatic stuff, but, like, traumatic stuff when I was a teenager. And I'm pretty sure if I had gone through similar stuff as a younger kid, I definitely would have developed a lot of much more interesting coping mechanisms, to say the least. So, mostly I just relied on disassociation, I think, to get me through. And thankfully I've figured out how to, I don't want to say solve the problem, but gain control over the situation one time before I cut off contact. And that one time was enough for me to go, I feel like I have control. And that was very, very therapeutic. And of course, spending too much time on TikTok recently, it's like, oh, okay. It gradually guides you into things. You're like, oh, that's what that was. Yeah. Needing pictures is definitely... Everybody functions differently. Like, some people need visuals, some people need written descriptions. I'm always one of those people, like, I will start with visuals and then I like a written description just in case something isn't super clear in the image. But I am definitely a visual first. Though I, like, easily can translate back and forth. But no, that was off. Nope. Okay. We're almost to a point where I feel like I can do something more interesting. Get through this row and then just do 2 more rows. And then I will feel justified in pulling the first few on top and see how it goes. French seams, the way I like to describe French seams is like this. So, stitch, stitch. The difference is just the fact that you have to start wrong side to wrong side. It's just reverse how you would normally do a seam. Make it a small one, and then flip it, done. But yeah, the way that I personally describe is just you stitch, and then you stitch. Ta-da. Yeah, I've been trying to figure out how best to do descriptions, because, like, I can easily do digital patterns. Like, it's not that they aren't time consuming and difficult. They are. It's just the explanation of how to put things together is 1,000 times more complex than figuring out how to just show pattern shapes. So but I think my current methodology that I want to try, because I've gone through a few different ideas, but I think my current methodology that I want to try is, because a lot of everything is going to be based off of original, like, antiques, is going with just pictures of the actual antique as best as I can for things, and go from there, because no amount of me drawing and describing is ever going to be as effective as just the straightforward. And I figure if everything also has, like, a video with it, that's not necessarily putting it, like, I can't take the time to put things together every single time, unfortunately. Like, that was where there's only so much practicality in this. But having a video of, like, the garment showing the different things, if need be, like, for supplemental. But I think the main thing is just, pictures of here's how this area was done, or this area, or whatever, and we'll go from there. Like, here's the rough idea of what I think happened, order-wise. Because I tried with one of the reproductions that I did to do very detailed notes and take pictures of each section. It was just like, this is so much work. And which means that it's like, either you get the most thorough, most perfect, honestly overdone pattern, or you get, like, 3 of them that are pretty thorough in the same amount of time. Like, maybe I should cut back on my effort. Okay. Alright, I think one more set, so across twice, and that'll get me down to, that much. Seems... I've got a decent number of threads in there. But that'll allow me to, like, pull, like, the top 5 or something, and see how that goes. Maybe top 6. Yeah, I think I put, like, top 6, and then we can work our... Well, if I do it in groupings of 6... And just always be a grouping ahead of myself. Because I'm just going to start off with, basic stitches across, which will be like, one thing across to try that out, and then eventually move to the bigger ones as I go. Yeah. Yeah, and I feel like what would make more sense in teaching people how to do historic clothing techniques is separating things out rather than having to include everything in every pattern. Having it be a, here's how this garment is done, sort of thing, and then building up large, like useful, more like little manuals that are generic to, here are hand sewing techniques of this era, machine sewing techniques of this era, or like typical techniques of this time period, and it becomes a supplemental material option for people that either don't want to even bother using the patterns and just want to know how these things tend to go together, or for people that want detailed step-by-step of how to do a stitch. You know, that sort of thing. Great project for cats. Yeah, the little fringy bits. Lots of yarn and threads and... Yep. Well, not surprisingly, Bailey only has to go out once. That's what I figured. Sometimes she just does that because she's bored. Like, you were out just before. Yeah, I'm going to try to... I need to do that. That's really what I need to be doing this weekend. Ugh. I'm going to be trying out my process theory on a bodice that I need to... I've got the pattern nearly done. I need to get my rough version of instructions done for people so that way I can send things off soon to be tested by multiple people. Yeah, and that's the thing. It's the acknowledgement that everybody is coming to anything like a sewing pattern with different levels of knowledge and for different reasons. Some people will want to reproduce that exact same thing and will want the exact details of how it's done. Some people will just kind of want more information or be making something similar. Some people will have no clue what they're doing and need a whole bunch of extra assistance, but it's like you can only fit so much in each thing. So it's deciding how to lay things out to assist, you know, beginner versus intermediate versus advanced. So that way everyone gets as much as they can out of it. Which is why I'm thinking, like, you have each individual pattern, which is, okay, here is this particular bodice and here is how this particular thing was put together. But then you can say things like, this was whipped down with this type of thread at this many stitches per inch. Then this was done da 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 da. But I'm not going to sit there and show and explain how to do a whip stitch because that is something that goes elsewhere. Or saying then the boning channels were, then the ribbon for the boning was stitched down using this stitch and with, a spring technique that gave it about an extra ½ inch of ease or whatever. And if people want, or like, I don't understand what that means, then there's a secondary resource that goes into great detail of the what and why and how, and yeah. So that way, the patterns can exist without having to clutter them up with explaining how to make bias tape or something. Because it's like, I realize I don't buy sewing patterns, historic ones, almost ever, because I don't feel like they give me information that would actually help me on the level that I'm at. It might speed up my work, but if the pattern's not precise or whatever, then it, if anything, it's going to hamper me. So I just end up making stuff from scratch myself. But I sometimes wish that there were more examples that I could read about of how things were put together. How did someone assemble this? What layers were there? Da 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 da. Not unlike, the more, not patterns of fashion necessarily, but like the 17th century dress books, like that sort of thing. That's what I think makes much more sense, where it shows you each section of the garment. It's like, ah, this is how this was put together or that was put together. And here's the order we think it happened. But even if you aren't making that exact garment, it's still educational and helpful in the fact that you can see techniques of the time and methodology. So it's just, not surprisingly, sometimes a lot of steps and a lot of parts and a lot of techniques. But I don't want to turn every pattern into a full-on book. And not everybody wants patterns, so. Almost there. Yeah. That's why I think it'd be one of those, and that's something we talked about, that we essentially would start off with individual patterns and then gradually all of the parts kind of get assembled into books that don't have the actual patterns in them, but just have the, here's how 5 different skirts ranging from 1880 to 1895 were assembled. Or whatever it is, like, just here are the sewing methods for this range of this type of thing, blah, 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 sort of thing. So, you know, having it in that situation instead. All right, I've inhaled my tea. I would like to drink more, but I'll have to go make more. I need to get myself a second kettle for up here. Like, I need to get myself a second tea set up for upstairs, I think. It should be on my list. Okay, let's try pulling one set. I'm going to treat it as 6 per set. I'm going to try pulling one set. I feel like it's so much darker in here on that screen than it actually is. I keep, like, adjusting the ISO up, but it's not enough. Okay. A little better. It's a cloudy day today, so it's not something I'm usually having to adjust for nearly as often. The other question that I've always got is, like, how much do I have to gather in? Because, like, that's not clear at all. Like, that's the reason why I want to test this out. I'm like how much do you gather? Because, like, it doesn't specify stuff like that. It's just like, gather things up, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, how much? But how much? How much? And that's definitely a good reason for testing, is attempting to see how much loss you actually get. Oh, nope, if you're going to start pulling through, I'm going to pull you back and knot you bigger. I have no idea what price points will be. That is beyond what we've talked about. It's something on my, like, big list for next year, hence why I'm... This year, well, obviously, year 1 of self-employment, whatever, was just getting my feet under me and get an idea of what's going to work for long-scale stuff versus just a video here or there that works. You know, big differences there. This year, too, was backing off so that way it'd be every other week and would actually start having time again and getting a, you know, consistent system in place. So next year, I've got a whole bunch of patterns that I, like, pulled about a year ago. I just need to get them digitized and going. So yeah, okay. I don't know how much it needs to get gathered, because, like, right now, obviously it looks super uneven, but that's just the nature of gathering without having like, some of it doesn't want to. And I think that's the nature of gathering this way, where you are gathering unevenly. So I think that's one of the downsides of this. It's like less likely that the thread would show if you leave it in, the gathering thread would show if you leave it in, but more likely that it's going to be a little bit fidgety when you go to actually work on it. So we'll see. We're going to see how this goes, because I'll pull each one of those little slots up, and that should kind of help make it more even in the long run. Once I start actually, yeah. Okay. It's like as I start to stitch all of these little bumps, then they'll even up really fast, but until I get these like tacked, then it's just gonna fight me. I'm wanting to be uneven about it, so that's good to know. I think the type of gathering that I'm doing would work better on a textile that doesn't want to fight back at all. It's very, like there's just a little bit of spring to this. So I think that's the difference. So, lesson number 1, already learned. If it was a soft fabric, I don't think it'd be as much of an issue, but this is a little bit like springy. So it's snowing horizontally in the opposite direction that the snow usually goes. Yeah, we get like, because so the area that I live is basically like a bowl in the middle of mountains. There's really big mountains on the west side of us that break stuff up as it comes across, and then we get this weird bowl, so we're constantly getting very strange weather. And so there is literally no way to predict which way the wind is going to go at any given time. I just follow where the tumbleweeds are going. So. Yeah, that's why I'm experimenting with this instead of doing it like in large scale across a really big garment and then doing it and like doing all of those rows and being like, I hate it. Oh no. Like, that's why I'm trying this. To learn what and why, because it's stuff like that they really, rarely put into books, because recommendations on how you do things is a much more advanced concept. Like, most of the time places don't bother to explain why you do things the way you just do them, and I need the why a lot more often than I would like to admit. So, that's what I'm going for here. Okay, cool and all. But where is your starting thread? Okay. I've got this one really loose one, which. Like, I'm very often used to whatever's tying things up being the thread that... There we go, there's an end there. So I think it's trapped in this somehow. But, like, it's not... Okay, well, at least I know this yarn does not break, period. Like, oh, that was... tried to snap it, it was like, nah. Like, oh, okay. I see what we're doing here. Alright. That's good. I'm just gonna leave things tied and as is because I just need little threads at a time. Okay, we'll see if I can get this through this needle or if I need a bigger one. Tumbleweeds are native to Russia? Interesting. I mean, there's a lot of Russian base plants that grow here. I know that there are different types of tumbleweeds. I feel like it looks something, because I mean the stuff that grows really well here are the Russian sage bushes. Those things just concerning levels of intensity. We have one that I keep that's by the side of our house that's just massive, and we keep trimming it back to like practically feels like stump level every like winter season, because it dies off and you trim it down, but it then just explodes again. And it's just because for whatever reason that one, the bees and other pollinators love it, and so they are just super active. We kept it trimmed back so that way it wasn't overhanging the sidewalk, but it takes up like You know, it's at least like full, I don't know, 5 feet across or something like that by the time we reach midsummer. And it's just full of bees. Like the entire bush just buzzes. I love it. It's terrifying. But my bigger concern is the fact that like people, you know, are walking by it all the time, and so I just want to make sure that it's not overhanging to the point where people are likely to end up walking into it and disturbing the bees. Okay, so this looks like essentially the way that we do this is just a very consistent backstitch thing. Cool. Good start. So yes, ideally I'm going to have this evenly gathered. All right, cool. Yeah, we have so many tumbleweeds here. Like so many. You can always tell if a car hasn't been moved in a while. Because it's just, like, if it's on the street, it's just so many tumbleweeds underneath of it. Tis a problem. We had a really windy storm one time, back, I think it was like 2019 or maybe 20, and you never know which way the wind's going to be going. And so different houses will get different quantities in different places. And one that was just across the street from us had a huge buildup, and I've never seen it like that again, where it was like a couple feet just deep and high up against their garage door. And I happened to be looking out of the window as the person pulled up into their driveway, stopped, got out of their car, and just, it was like that. I have to laugh at this because it's so silly and weird, but also, because if you've never dealt with tumbleweeds, they are not friendly. They're really stabby, for lack of a better term. So you can't just go out there and grab them. They will hurt. You have to get heavy gloves and like other protective equipment. Make sure your arms are fully covered. It's, especially the big ones, like they're difficult and they're big and they don't break down easily. Like you have to crush them in order to break them down. So you get in there with like clippers, and so just getting rid of even one is not easy, let alone when you have like 50 built up around your house. So I'm just like the recent winter storm blew a big one into our backyard, and I'm looking at it going, I don't want to deal with you. Yep. Yeah, they just destroy everything. And they get so big too. Most of the ones around here are small just because we get so much wind. They don't get a chance to grow. Like, we don't have a lot of moisture and we have so much wind, they don't get a chance to grow as big as they could. When I lived in Nebraska, though, there weren't as many of them, but the ones that you did see tended to either be super tiny or as big as, like, a car. Like, I saw so many that were, like, literally at least 3 feet across, and I was just like, you're just watching an SUV plow into them. It's like, nope. Just nonsense. Nonsense plants. I don't like them. Okay. So, alright, I'm gonna finish this row up, and then the second thing on the list is doing this chain stitch, but doing it reversed next to itself, so that way you end up with a little V thing. So I'm going to try that after this one. It'll be on the same row, so I can get a test out of the row. You just burn them? Yeah. Unfortunately, we're not allowed to like burn anything here. Feels like, I mean, we do sometimes. We have a fire pit that's like a contained fire pit in our backyard that's, you know, not near anything flammable. We're careful around here, but it's not big enough for us to just burn stuff, unfortunately. Okay, so what I'm getting off of this is this yarn is definitely going to deal with a lot of friction issues. I don't want to put wax on it. We'll see. See how this goes. Just have to be wary of it, and I think keep twisting it as I go to make sure that it's not untwisting itself and then therefore getting fuzzier than it should. Oof, gooseberries. Oof. Yeah. So many thorny things. So many angry thorny plants in the world. Yeah, I was gonna say there's not enough stuff to burn. It's already kind of crispy as it is. Out here we have just enough stuff to burn and nowhere near enough water to keep it from all being super flammable. So you just get fires all the time around here. It's annoying. This is always a fun game of, oh, is that a cloud or is that smoke? Probably smoke. Like, why is it hazy today? Should I be concerned? Is there something nearby that... At least we've gotten a lot of snow so far this year. Hopefully that keeps up. Because if it actually keeps up, unlike previous years where it got really snowy for like a month and then stopped, if this amount of snowpack actually keeps up, we will be okay this year. So hopefully, as much as it sucks for a lot of people when it snows a bunch up on the mountains, you know, because it shuts down I-80 and all that sort of stuff, and that is a problem when, especially when you live in an area where pretty much everything comes through that mountain pass that gets closed off repeatedly. So packages get delayed, and especially grocery stores can have problems, but it long term is so much more meaningful than just a couple days of low stock on things or slower packages. So you learn to live with it, but hopefully it keeps doing that, because they've been reasonable snowstorms, like 3-4 feet, but nothing that has been an absolute disaster so far. We have a couple, usually you get one or two of those every winter up in Tahoe, where it just snows so much that like everyone's like, I can't get out of my house. And you see all of these tourists didn't know what to expect and showed up to Tahoe in the middle of winter like idiots. I'm just like, they're like, we didn't expect 7 feet of snow. Yeah, that's what happens. Welcome to Tahoe. People that just go up there and think that it'll be fine. It's like, no, there's no such thing. There will be snow. It's just a question of how bad will it be. Will it be 3 feet and manageable in a day or two? Will it be a lot more? Okay. Yeah. And then people that go up there and then don't actually grab food before they go into their little rental house or whatever. They're like, I'm like, yeah, you're stupid. Like, I'm a local and I would not go up there during winter unless I really, like, it's one thing if you're going up there to ski, I get that, but you gotta be prepared for the fact that there's a good chance of you getting snowed in for a couple of days at any given time. Unless you happen to have the right equipment to get out. Oh yeah. I mean, drought levels here affect so many places, so it's like inevitably how much fire we have, which is going to affect a lot of different places. You know, how much fire we have affects how much of a problem in terms of smoke other places are going to get down the line, and this, that, and the other, so. Yeah, thankfully, like I said, we're on a good track this year so far. Hopefully it keeps up. We really haven't had a good year for a little while. The last one was the winter 18-19 was the last one that was good enough in terms of what they actually wanted for snowpack, and that was not anything extreme, it was just not bad. Okay, that to that. So what I'm getting is the ending of this stuff is kind of wonky. Okay, It's not too bad. It's just a little off there. Okay. All right, not too bad. Good start. Good start. Oh, 18, 19. I do normally speak in historical terms, yes. Okay, so... I'm like, do I want to do this left-handed and just go back or tie it off? I'll just tie it off. Hope you could not make it too weird. I'm thinking what I'm going to start doing, I'm going to actually do this, is instead of putting a knot and then running the thread, I think I'm going to do that and back and then anchor it on the end, so that way it is more established and I'm less likely to pull a knot through. I think that's going to be one of my techniques. I gotta flip things back and forth. We'll see. We'll see. No, I wouldn't. I'd run that and then run the other end. Should be fine. Oh yeah, like Abby and I went up there to Tahoe in the summer one time and we had so much stuff with us. Like, we got Trader Joe's down here. You go there and then you head up to the mountains. It's fine. Just make sure you hit one of the stores. And I mean, there's plenty of restaurants and stores and things up there too, but we ended up staying in one area. There's a cute little convenience store thing, and they had, fresh baked goods provided by some local place every day, and vegetables and things like that. But yeah, you go up there. Like, we were only up for like 3 days, and we definitely could have been snowed in. I've been fine. Oh, yeah, everybody's getting drought, floods, all sorts of issues. It's just crazy, no matter where you live. It's just what you're used to. As to whether it's a problem or not, but it's like, it just depends on whether the area and you specifically are prepared for that particular type of disaster. I feel like at this point, I feel like everybody should just be prepared for all of them. Just, no matter what. Just in case. Not too far. I was like, wait, how centered up am I? Okay, we're fine. So I'm like, am I getting off screen? No, okay. Right, so I'm doing what they call outline stitch, and then this one's mock chain stitch. So we're trying that out. Let me see if I can... Wrong way. Zoom in further. There we go. Maybe you guys can see a little better what I'm doing. So this is kind of like seemingly the neutral, type of... I need a line across, but I don't need a fancy line. So, very important, basic place to start, it seems. Cool. This makes sense so far. Okay, this is fine. And admittedly, doing that first stitch wasn't very even. I was having trouble keeping the gathers even, but with this second one on it, it's working it out pretty well. So, good to know if you have a more difficult fabric that this helps to even things up slightly and make it more stable. You do that second line right there. I mean, I assume as I go, the whole thing in general will be more stable. We'll see. Dressmaking endeavor, neat. Oh, what did it censor? I don't see it censoring anything. Yeah. I don't know. I don't think I developed any, weird hoarding. I don't want to say hoarding because that's a stronger word than I'm looking for, but squirreling. Squirreling away of things. I don't think I got any of that from my grandparents. I don't tend to keep a ton of stuff around. Just because I don't like having a bunch of stuff that I won't end up eating. If it's not part of my normal repertoire, I just won't get around to it. Accidentally ended up getting something ordered. Well, I had something on like an auto replenish whatever, and I thought I had turned it off, but apparently I just delayed it, so I ended up getting more of that recently, but like, I was thinking about doing it for like one turn anyway, so it's fine. It's basically just dry packaged Indian food, which is not a bad thing to keep around. Like, yeah. Allows me to be lazy with just some hot water. It's not a bad thing. Alright. That did pretty well. So I can definitely do 2 runs with the silk thread before it, or I guess runs of that length. So I can get a long run probably out of this without having to knot off and all that in the middle, but just 1 row at a time. That's probably going to be the extent of it. So there you go. That's what the mock chain stitch first attempt looks like, which is not bad. Like I said, dealing with a more difficult fabric, I think, than I will actually end up using for anything, but we'll see. Oh, I must have missed that one. Usually it gives me like a big... You might have it set specific to you. Yeah, I think it's just for you because I see all of those words and it didn't flag anything for me to approve them. So you probably just have a setting on your end for things where it won't allow words like boobs because, makes sense. We just talk about a lot of body parts and things that sound like body parts to the censor in this chat because, sewing. Clothing. It involves a lot of body parts. Okay, cool. All right, I'm going to knot off these 2. And we'll go from there. All right, so should be able to go next row down and try something else. We have cable stitch. Way to do. All right, all right, we'll try that next. Grab more thread. Find where the end is again. I may have made. There it is. I found the end. Huzzah. That ends it out before I lose it. Yes. Yeah. Yeah, there's a whole lot of... Sometimes, and I think bust also gets censored like it was. I've set it to not do really almost any censorship, so... Apologies if someone ever comes in here and says a lot of horrific things. I think it's just basically set to censor out, like... insult-based slang things, so it would still censor out not swear words or body parts, but, things that are a hard no word-wise, like, not allowed, period. There is no context in which this word is acceptable, type thing. Alright, so I've done that one. Let's go down 1 row, and we will do the... what is they're calling it? The cable stitching. So I think it's up, down sort of thing. Okay, so I just need to remember which way I did that stitch and then stitch accordingly. Okay, haha. So I'll end up with the other type. Haha. You don't want to get censored. theoretically most words in here shouldn't be. And generally, like I said, it pops up as like, do you want to allow this? And usually if it does it, I'll say yes. I don't think I've had anyone, all of the spam stuff that we get that comes in, just somebody like, hey, do you want more whatever to your website? And then they disappear again. I'm like, whatever. Nope. Other way. Gotta remember which way I'm doing stitches for this version. And make sure that the links are the same, because that is a much pickier stitch. Looking at this, like, yeah, that one's a lot less, like the other one, because it kind of ends up being at like an angle or whatever, it's a little harder to track if your stitches are exactly the same size and everything. So I'm like, all right, I have to be more conscious of this distance thing. I'm also not doing these like super tight. I definitely could be gathering this tighter and then stitching these so that way they're really pulling everything together. But from what I could see on the originals, there's usually a little bit of gap. So I don't know, it may just be that their fabrics are a little bit beefier than mine, but it doesn't seem like it should be, considering what they usually use is so thin looking. So, I don't know. Yeah, in real life, I'm around a lot of people that swear all day. It's really funny, though, because I don't swear in my YouTube videos just because I don't need to contextually. It just doesn't make sense for me to. And in general, it's very, like, calm and easy. Like, oh yeah, we're just gonna, like, sit around and chat. So swearing is more, in my opinion, energy-based, and I am not usually doing that sort of thing in my YouTube videos, so I just don't very often. But some of the other people I know do occasionally in their YouTube videos, because, you know, it's fine energy wise for them to do it, and we all do in person. And it's so funny because every once in a while we just get people on the channels that are so upset that somebody swore and like, I thought better of you, and we're just sitting around and like hanging out in group chats. Just all of the YouTubers in our group, everyone swears. Like, all of us. No matter how prim and proper or whatever you think somebody is, nope, everybody swears. Just profusely. It's just so funny. Because we were talking about that when we were, a bunch of us were hanging out together in London, and someone had just complained to, I think, Abby about swearing. I don't know, somebody about it. And so we're like, yeah, I don't think they'd actually want to hang around with us in real life. Yeah. And like there's obviously very different levels of types of swears and situations for them, and da-da-da-da-da. How people rank things and rate things and whatever. Whether it makes it just seem much more comfortable and casual, or whether it's expressing frustration or whatever. So, like, they are words. And I feel like anytime you spend a lot of your life looking up historical anything, the more you start to realize how little permanence anything has in the world, and just your concept of how things work changes, because it's like what is a swear word has changed so dramatically over the centuries, and like what words we use for that, and words that used to be okay are no longer okay, and vice versa. Just like, it's hard to take it seriously when there's no consistency to it. Like, that word didn't even exist 30 years ago. Yeah, swearing at someone. Yes, that is the, I guess, the line of sorts. Like, my mother used to explain my grandfather. I know my grandfather. Like, I got to know him pretty well, but I obviously wasn't around him, when he was doing working and all that sort of stuff very often. But my mother explaining, like, when she was growing up, my grandfather's way of dealing everything whenever he was presented with, like, a problem that would normally require, like, a lot of people back in, like, the 50s or whatever, a lot of guys would have just kind of exploded at their kids or whatever. And she said his method was always just to turn, swear at a corner of the room, and then come back, and then we'd fix it. I was like, that seems so much my grandfather. Like, he's like, I just got to get this out for a moment. This is not directed at you. All right, let's go fix this. Like that. That just explains him perfectly to me. Oh yeah, swear at inanimate objects all the time. That is perfectly... That's the best way to get it out. So far we've got those two. I mean, the first one is technically 2 stitches, but there was no reason for me to make up a separate one in order to practice that. The point of this is me trying these stitches and kind of having, like, a sampler of what do they look like and how do I do them. And finding out things like, okay, that stitch is better done with, stability, da-da-da-da-da-da. Because that's the thing, like, I could watch people doing this, or I could read people talking about it, but until I go to try it on a fabric, I wouldn't know, oh, that stitch really requires multiple rows if you're going to be doing it on an edge, or if you're doing it with a fabric that kind of fights back, then you might want to do a second row, da-da-da-da-da. Like this one, they show with multiple rows of this stitch. So you can space the cable stitch out, and from the looks of it, it's pretty typical to, like, reverse up down as you do it to get kind of a slightly different design. Okay, I'm going to try that. I'm going to try the second row with this cable stitch just to see what happens, because I'm curious what that... My brain's like, does it really? Okay. So we're gonna try that method. We go the opposite way for the next row for the up and downs, just to see what happens. Get 2 rows in there, because they show, you could do multiple rows, but I think 2 will be enough for the purposes of what I'm doing. The tests that I am trying to accomplish here. And then we get into wave stitch and trellis stitch and stuff that requires larger spaces. At which point I should probably do another gathering, a couple gathering stitches and gather up another section or make that work. So this is one of those, like, seemingly really typical fill type things. You just want straight lines. Oh, if you need a thimble, but your nail is a problem, get a tailor's thimble. They are open on top. You will have to learn to push with the side of your finger. A lot of people already do, but you can get a tailor's thimble because it doesn't have a top to it, so it just slides down over. That's what I prefer to use if I have to stitch with a thimble for any length of time. I think I have one around somewhere. I don't remember. I think I stole one. I might have stolen one from the tailors. I just don't remember where it is currently. Yes, they do make open top thimbles, so do recommend. Sent me something. Yeah, leather ones do work do work pretty well. if I need a thimble, I need a metal one because it's got to be that difficult. I really wish I knew how to buy things from this person. Cool. Just keep sending me antique stuff. I just bought a bunch. Nice. Oh man, that's my size. Like, ah, cool. Like, they have a website and they have an eBay, but like the stuff that they put up on their, I can never manage to like see it on their website or something. So I don't know if it just doesn't make it up or how they do sales, or if it goes up later or what. I don't know. I need to spend some time on that. It's like, I love the fact that Instagram has turned into kind of like a sales thing. It sucks from one perspective. I love it from another. I wish that it was a separate place. Like, I wish that it hadn't been so much that Instagram developed into that as much as a separate place, like, was started to make it easier as, like, an alternative to Etsy and the horrificness that is Etsy. But, I hate it when, like, antique dealers have a very active Instagram, but you can't actually purchase there, or they don't give you like, oh yeah, it will go up here in like 2 days, or it's up here now, or whatever it is. Like, no, just eh. Okay, I'm gonna get this line done and then I'm gonna eat some granola because I am really hungry. Yeah, sailor stuff. Yeah. Yeah, the sailor's palm. That's what I'm used to calling it. Those are very good. You can find a lot of places that sell like heavy canvas work and things like that. Have those. Like hemp traders. I don't know if they do, but that sort of thing. Yeah, those, I used that a lot when I was doing tent making. That was, yeah. Tent making was the only time I regularly wore some sort of protective device on my hands for things, because that stuff will mess you up. So I wore a tailor's thimble for most of it, like day-to-day stuff, and then the heavier things pulled out the palm. Thankfully, most of the needles that we were working with were so large that you weren't going to back them into your like fingers while you were sewing, unless you were putting so much force into it that you know you'd mess yourself up. like yeah, that you chose that. Oh, neat. Sail seeming. Okay, yeah, I'm not going to try to pronounce that. I know a few words in Swedish. I tried to learn some, and then was like, no, this is fine. Mostly it was me, like, attempting to learn things and being like, Abby, how do I say this? And she'd be like, oh, God. I was like, all right, never mind. Wait, wrong way. Aha, there we go. Yeah, the smaller your needle is, the more likely you are to end up impaling yourself with the back end of it. Mine are, for that reason, larger than most like to stitch with in my field. This is more what I see tailors using on a regular. But I was always told by the people that did just like more dressmaking things, or more like I learned in the 1950s type sewing or whatever, to use these tiny little needles because just it helps make smaller stitches. And I'm over here making like absurdly tiny stitches with what they would consider these giant honking needles. and I've slowly converted more and more people to the fact that, like, it doesn't actually help you to have the world's tiniest needle. Like, if that's what you're comfortable with, fine, but don't just assume that's what you're comfortable with without trying the bigger ones first, because the bigger ones will actually help you not hurt yourself as much. So I have, I use actually what are technically embroidery eye needles, so they're much larger eye. And so it's really actually pretty difficult to force that back into your hand comparatively to most needles. So yeah, it's a much larger needle than most people. Yeah, so highly recommend spending some time trying different ones. Great comparison. I think most people I know stitch with needles like, get taught to stitch with needles like this. You can see how much finer it is. And I don't find that these actually damage anything, the bigger ones. It's not like they leave giant holes or anything. So yeah, get a sampler set, try different ones. I keep this stuff around for when I'm doing like beading or really tiny stuff, but honestly, I haven't found that I need to have the smaller ones. Most of the people that I talk to that are like, oh, I use the smaller ones, oh, I need the smaller ones, and then I'm like, just try it, and then within like a short distance they're like, oh, actually this is just fine, you know, this isn't a problem. I'm like, yeah, and you're less likely to hurt yourself. So yeah, definitely get a pack range, and then see where that goes. Yeah, in general, that also, because it's longer and everything, that means that I can grip and push rather than push. So I don't push like that. And this is a finger strength thing and technique and all that sort of stuff. So if you don't stitch like this, don't try and force yourself to do it if it's uncomfortable. But I push through rather than push through. So that's why I don't bother with a thimble. All right. So I've done 2 rows of that really standard little cable stitch, and you can do as many rows of that as you want to. Cool. And then next up we have wave stitch. Like I said, I think I want to gather a little bit more before I do that, because it looks like it's going to take up the rest of the space that I've got. So let's put in 2 more rows of gathering threads before things get so gathered that it becomes difficult to do. And I can gather up 2 more. All right, cool. Back and forth. Yeah, like I said, I use the embroidery eye needles. I am the reason why Burnley and Trowbridge sells that size of needle as well. Just to be honest with you, I'm the one that convinced Angela that that's actually a really practical like size. All right, so if I do it this way, let's try that. Because she started using those and was like, oh, okay, yeah, trust me on this. I don't know why I started with that type of needle. Like, I don't remember anyone ever teaching me to do that. But it's so much easier to thread, no matter what size of thread you've got. It's less likely to back through your hand. And they're not bigger because of it. It's just a longer eye. So, I don't know. I don't know why that's not just, like, normal. The only reason that, like, I can't use this for everything is, like, it won't do beads or stuff like that well, but that's, like, it. Yeah, and a lot of the time, the problems that I tend to have with, like, oh, the needle left a larger hole in the fabric tends to be more quality of, or I guess it tends to be related to the quality of the needle. Ones that have rough spots and aren't as sharp as they should be, older needles, tend to rip and cause problems with the thread, with, like, the fibers that you're going through. So, like, this is definitely one of the larger embroidery needles, but I use this for most things. If I was, say, doing fine hemming on, like, a cotton or something, I probably wouldn't, but that'd be about the only time that I might want to switch for something slightly smaller, and I just don't happen to have any of the smaller ones at the moment for whatever reason. I think I've lost those over the last few years. Just ends up being the case when you work with a whole bunch of people that also sew, and inevitably people grab needles and pins off of each other's pin cushions, and then they get lost for the ages. Like, just never see them ever again. So I think they've just been lost in that manner over the time. Oh, the sun's coming out. Look at that. It just started snowing. Awesome. I hear the pitter-patter of little feet coming to tell me off. Oh wait, I was supposed to stop and eat something. Shoot. Distraction. Yeah, and like I said, be wary with a lot. It used to be that it wouldn't matter if you got higher quality needles or not, but more and more it does start to matter. The quality of I picked up a multi-pack from Joann's or whatever. Those are going downhill so quickly. So it's definitely something to be aware of. Hi, Bailey. Give me just a minute. What's that? Oh, okay. I know, we are just about at 11 o'clock, and that's the point where you demand that food needs to be given, not that that's when you're supposed to be fed, but when you think you are. I got this stuff from Trader Joe's. And well, I'm sure it is less healthy than most granola other options, but like, wow. Oh, yeah, those are the smocking lines, yeah. I tried putting down chalk, and it just wasn't holding long enough, so I actually ended up using my favorite tool that no one actually keeps around for sewing stuff, jelly pens. It won't come off very easily from all things. It comes off of leather sometimes, and it does sometimes come off of certain fabrics. But if visibility is not an issue, jelly pens, man. Really fine lines, really clear. It works. Especially, smocking, you're marking the backside, so it doesn't matter. What is... I'm so confused. I'm getting alerts from an app, I don't even know what it is. Oh, okay. I went ahead and made an account on whatever that app is that's supposed to be potentially replacing Twitter. I made that like weeks ago, and it's not functional for me. It's just there. I was like, Hive, that's what it's called. So it's like, I'm there. I don't have anything aside from my name and a picture. Oh, they get salty about it? Ma'am, you're getting salty about it. If I give you more pumpkin, will you be quiet? I mean, it makes sense. Bianca, of course Bianca would know about that. Yeah, like, why wouldn't you? I totally understand if it's a situation where you need to make sure that whatever the marking is completely invisible, but if you're on the back side of something, why does it matter? But yeah, I use it on leather all the time because I found that it actually is sometimes easier to remove than the heat pens that they sell, like expensive ones. So I use watercolor pencils on leather as well. It just, the line can be a little too fat for me sometimes. Like, I need sometimes a really detailed point. Yeah, Bianca's awesome. I think about her every time Mood goes through a phase of just putting up so many metallic jacquard, like, brocade things, and they've been on a bend for the last, like, week of just metallic brocades, and I'm like, oh, Bianca's gonna be broke. Like, they're so her style. I love this granola way too much. It's like eating cookies. And like, I'm not a big snack person. Like, I eat in between meals because my body will literally just like wither and die if I don't. I hate it so much. I can only eat so much when I sit down for a meal, and I can literally feel my body's like blood sugar and energy just go off a cliff, and I'm like, oh no. After a couple of hours. Oh. She steals over her pins. I do that sometimes. Alright, because I'm like, whatever. I like it. I think, oh man, maybe, So, a video that I've wanted to do for a while has been, like, basically why the 1950s ruined sewing, but just basically talking about all of the sewing rules that you don't have to follow, and you shouldn't follow in some cases. Maybe I should make that, like, a more than just me thing. Because I don't want to actually go around and ask people, like, because I feel like a lot of the answers would be the same, repeat over and over again. And I have, like, a long list I've been keeping, but I could totally do that in combination with somebody. I've watched a lot of her stuff, but I don't always watch all of her sewing videos all the way through. So if she also does that sort of thing, I might need to watch some of her videos, reach out to her, and be like, hey, do you want to do this together? It'll be fun. Oh, only use matching thread. Yeah, throw that out the window. Oh yeah, understandably, you take out pins for, like, a multitude of reasons, but, modern sewing machines have, like, versions of how they actually can, like, sense them and get around them, so it's like, whatever. And sometimes, honestly, you're more likely to mess stuff up by taking the pin out. You just gotta be careful. Just watch what you're doing. Especially if you're wearing glasses. You're fine. I've seen, like, explosions of pins before, so I'm a little wary of them, but like, don't freak out about it. You don't know. She's been not feeling well for the last, like, day or two. But she goes through periods where she's she's fine. She feels clearly fine. It's her intestinal system that clearly doesn't. But other than that, you seem just fine. You keep demanding food. Yeah. Alright, if I give you one more, this pumpkin's good for your stomach. Will you leave me alone, or am I still gonna have to take you downstairs for feeding time, probably? What rules I'd never break? I'm not sure there are any. Because in my opinion, things are so situational. Like, there are things that I think should always be prioritized if possible, but none of the things are, like, on the list of stuff I wouldn't. Like, I will always argue for basting. Will I always baste? No. Sometimes that goes by the wayside, because reasons. So, I guess there are things like you'll have a bad time if you don't adjust what you're doing to your fabric weight and, you know, textures and things like that, but that's more like tips and tricks, like, but I don't know. Why are you being a butt? Never listen to people when they tell you always or never. That's a good one. Fabric scissors are never used on paper. I don't even follow that rule. Fabric scissors, my nicer fabric scissors aren't used for a lot of things. Like tape or whatever. Like, don't open a package with them. But I, for a long period of time, used what used to be my fabric scissors on paper and never had an issue. Like, they never wore down more or anything like that. I think the general rule that I have is just don't use them for anything that's not in my sewing space purpose-wise, like, that's within this realm. Like, they better not come out sticky. If there's any chance of them coming out sticky, that's the problem. Ma'am! No! Just wait. No, you just have to wait. Just a few more minutes. Let me get this thread through, and then you and I will go downstairs. We'll do an intermission, and I will go take care of what you need. But for right now, you need to wait. Oh, I'm a stinky butt that needs a bath. Yeah. You better wait, otherwise I'm going to give you a bath. That's what I'll threaten you with. Yeah, you're more likely. Really, camera? Apparently the battery decided to die. Which shouldn't, because it's working off of the power of the computer. But give me a second. I will finish this thread, switch out, put on intermission, switch out batteries. All the things. Do. Okay. Yeah. Pins are far more dangerous with scissors than anything else. So I guess that's part of it. I will never cut anything with pins in it. Or near where I'm cutting. Yeah, unfortunately, my regular scissors, my paper scissors, or I guess technically they're shears that I use up here, are quite sticky because I also use them to cut the tape that I use often on shoemaking stuff. So I'm like, like, that's definitely a place that I don't use my nicer scissors for. No, you're fine. I know. Just a minute. Yeah. I know. Don't worry. I got you, boo. I will take care of you here very shortly. I promise. We will get you dealt with very quickly. Just pulling in and gathering thread here. Gathering up the next section. Okay. Alright. I know. Okay. Do I repair my modern shoes? I don't have very many modern shoes anymore. I used to just take them when I wore them out regularly in like college. I took them to a modern cobbler all the time. That was never a problem. They weren't ones I was making at the time though, obviously. But I suppose I could. It's just most of the time when I'm buying modern shoes, they're not for heavy. They're for heavy wear and they're rubber soled, and I'm not dealing with that, or they're for like very weird usage. Okay. I gotta feed the dog apparently and change my battery, so I will be right back. Okay, we're back. Acha. Ooh, blackbird samplers, cool. No, Bailey, you just had your entire lunch. You don't get mine. My snack is my snack. All right. Well, all gone. That's all there is. You've had so much today. You don't need more. Okay. So, we went up and down, back and forth, all that sort of. Let's try the zigzag thing. Now that I've learned the basic stitches, which are pretty straightforward so far. Alright, let's tie off the next two threads together. Let's see how this goes. Alright, cool. Alright. Jeez, it got bright. The sun came out. Okay, it's not as bad. Let's turn it down one. Alright. If I think about it, it's always the opposite way. If I just do it, then I get it right. But alright, so the next one, we're doing a wave stitch. So, similar to what I just did, but a little bit different. Okay. What are you doing in there? Being trouble? You sound like you're being trouble. I bet you're rolling around in all the clothes I've got on the floor in there. Great. Bailey, come here. Come here, boo. So I did some closet clean out recently, and I have a pile of clothes on the floor in the extra bedroom, and she's literally wrapped up in a pair of leggings right now. Did you free yourself? Were you having fun? Okay. Like, ma'am. Jeez. Okay, so. No. Nope. Cannot assist. Cannot render an assist. Alright, let's up and down. Yeah, Bailey is helping. Yeah. I generally like having reasons to be doing things, like deadlines and reasons. I'm trying to give myself a lot of, like, I have things coming up that I will have deadlines and reasons for. I'm trying to give myself space right now for that reason. Like, it's okay to just try some things, experiment, change up what I'm doing or whatever. Like, it's okay. I don't have to be full out productive, whatever, at the moment. Trying to stave off too much burnout. Because I definitely feel that post the giant project I just did. Shockingly. So I'm like, yeah, I'm just going to give myself some space. Do some smaller things or more experimental things or whatever. Okay, doop-a-doop. So I need at least, it looks like they recommend. No. I literally did everything I could for you. I fed you. I took you outside. Like, you don't need more. No. That's all that there is. All we've got. back down again. I don't know how much of a, like, angle this actually ends up looking like, but we'll see. I mean, I know it's... either way. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, there's definitely a lot of things I would start... I think that's one of the reasons why I end up doing so much research at the beginning of so many projects. I'm like, all right, if I can make it through that much and still want to do it. All of the sourcing, all of the research. Okay, so that. Like, it's a little bit of an angle, but it's not much. I'm going to see if I can do a little more spaced out on the next one. Let's try next run. Hence why we are experimenting. Yay. Trying things. Yep, but up. Okay. I think the dog finally wore herself out. Something like that. Okay, this one's gone a little bit better. I'm giving myself a little bit more spacing between each one of the levels. It's looking a little bit more intentional. Okay. Cool. All right. Yeah. Always have to clear out stuff. My problem right now is just without having stuff that I have to be doing, I just keep finding myself halfway, like, not halfway completing things, but just taking way too long in completing things. And then getting distracted and then being like, well, maybe I should do this instead, or maybe I should. I'm like, no. Okay, that was a little bit better. A little bit more angled up and down. Okay. There we go. Keep twisting. I don't want to use wax on this. Maybe I'll get my other stuff. I don't know. Okay, so definitely just angle as I make the stitch. That helps. Okay. I got bright again. I know, that's always my problem, is like, alright, I'll just do this thing for a few minutes and then distraction. Like, I could spend all of my free time just doing research and not actually doing anything with that research. I have so many things that I'm, like, interested in, have ideas for, and started doing research for, but have not actually turned into anything for various reasons. Like, that's one of those very addictive things to me. I've got too many video ideas and not enough time. Oh, wait. That was number 5. Whoopsies. Q over there. Okay, that's something to be aware of. Okay. Not too bad so far. No idea what point we'll end this at, but whatever. You could see that being a potential problem with one of these where you're doing the larger up and downs. Like, having the correct number to get across, not having it end in a weird place or be off-centered or whatever. Something to be aware of. Unless I want to pre-count, but, you know. There we go. Okay. Pick up that one. Spin-off hobbies. I have so many topics in. I literally just have like a bunch of folders on my desktop that are just full of little research PDF things where I'm just like, oh, that'd be a fun thing to research. Let me save that for later, because if I go to try and find it later, I won't. And so I just have all of these giant folders of like beginnings of ideas just in case I get into that. Oh yeah. Morgan's great at just interesting skills. Like, I'll just pick up that skill and working stuff. And somehow she just does it for a little while, puts it down, like, finishes a project, puts it down, and, like, it's just there for if she needs it later. But, you know, she's not, like... I think it's because, like, what I was talking about with this, where I just, like, instead of spending hours and hours and hours doing a ton of research on this topic, I'm like, let's just try it. Because that makes it seem much less daunting, which seems very much more... I forgot my tea downstairs. I knew I was going to forget something. I'll run downstairs, get that momentarily, because I would like to drink that. Let's start a next row at least. See where this gets us. Here. And historical menswear. Oh, yeah. I have so much historical menswear to do this year. It's going to be great. Or at least historical tailoring. It may not all technically end up being menswear, but high on my list. Chainmail, swordworking, armoring. Oh no. I did take a class many years ago on chainmail. The class itself was not particularly great. Not that the people didn't know what they were doing, they just weren't the best at teaching. That was a learning experience. But so I learned enough, but I would like to learn more at some point. Put it that way. Yeah, I need to go yell at somebody. I need to go yell at 2 people to get me some information very soon. I'm thinking about, like, oh, I've got 2 people I'm supposed to be yelling at now. Lovingly yelling at. I don't actually, like, in most cases, not a big deal. One of them does have a deadline, the other one does not, but like, I would like to do it sooner rather than later, so I don't have to keep coming up with other video ideas. Like, that'd be a good, like, I have a good video idea for that one. I would like to do it, so that way I can get it over with. Yeah, I've seen lots of fun chainmail methods and things like that. I did get some of that knitted fabric that looks like very fine chainmail. I do want to do something with that in the not too distant future. But so what I'm gathering off of this is that figuring out how far I should be going up and down is kind of the difficulty. I managed to match pretty well, though, for the first one. I just need to... I did it kind of off-center, and I think that was my mistake. So that is helpful to know. I need to make sure to start above the line and work up and down, so that way the next one starts below it. Da da da. So that way it's even. Oh yeah, the Adam Savage videos with Terry English. Oh, I know. It doesn't help that like I know a bunch of people that are blacksmiths, and like though I don't have like setups available to me, just like anything in that range. Like metalworking is one, again, I think I've talked about it before. Metalworking is one of those things I'm like, that's something I would like to do at some point. Not extensively. Like I want to do it in the sense of go hang out with somebody who has the setup for it and the knowledge and just kind of like learn. Same thing with weaving and dyeing and all that stuff. I'm like, I would just like to go hang out with some people. Do I want to do this at length? No. Do I want to understand it? Yes. Like, dang it, I just need to go back to Williamsburg again. This is the problem. That's why that place just sucks you in and never lets you really go. Because you're like, but there's so many people with so much knowledge. If I could just go back and talk to, but then I'd need to be there for a few weeks. Maybe I should just, I don't think they'd let me do an internship again. Like, is this how we ended up with so many random people, like, not retired, but just people that weren't doing other stuff, just volunteering in the shops because they're just like, I just want to learn how to do this thing. If I volunteer my time, then I don't have to pay people to teach me. I will learn anyway. Helping, but also learning. Man, maybe that's what I need to do. To make sure that I get all the way back up to the top before I do that. So, not bad for a first attempt. Armor lessons for shoemaking lessons. Yeah, I definitely in the future want to do some of those and go wander about a bit. Fortunately, at this point, Bailey is on the older spectrum of things, and I'm like, well, maybe after, in a few years, when she's no longer around, I can be a bit nomadic for a little bit. We'll see. Go do research and teach classes and things. I feel like there should be 6 stitches for each one of these, not just 5. Because it's like, technically you're only really doing 4 each time. I think that's what's throwing me. I'm also realizing even when you knot off the threads, getting it to actually look good near the end is difficult. Which is good to know. Kind of run off into seam allowance. Plan to run off into seam allowance at the very least. Yeah, good way to do it. Whatever it is. Can't. Tatting. Yeah, I have not tried. I've watched people do it extensively. I know people who are very good at tatting and other related things, but I have not. I'm pretty good at tension for crochet and knitting. I haven't done as much crochet. I just, for whatever reason, just didn't like crochet as much as I liked knitting. I don't know. It's just not that I wasn't like taught both methods thoroughly when I was younger. Just for whatever reason, I ended up liking knitting more. Oh yeah, I should go get my tea. Okay, I'll be right back. Let me put in my should be right back. Seems like a dangerous place to lie down, but okay. Okay. Yeah. Glove making is at least, like, like, it doesn't require a whole bunch of weird stuff, so. Alright, so I've done that. Like, look, it's starting to look like actual smocking. Hooray. Alright, the next one. Oh, that's daunting. Diamond stitching. You're jumping back and forth between rows. Ugh. Okay. And then that is also jumping back and forth. I think it's more complex jumping back and forth. Alright, I think I need to do at least 2 more rows of gather before I get to any of this stuff. Because that's going to take up, like, a fair amount. Okay. Like, I've got gathering down to here, but still. Alright. I am enjoying this. It's just very tedious, but I have a feeling it's one of those things where if you're, most of the time you're also not, like, looking at it, a lot of times they're not super deep. They just cover whatever it is, thing is, but it's only like that wide. So that's not too bad. It's just because I'm experimenting that it takes a while, but width-wise is definitely a thing, unfortunately. Alright, so doing what I did last time, which will help prevent pull-through. Finding the middle, putting a couple knots in it. And doing it that way. That way my ends are attached. Everybody brings their weird hobbies for 2 weeks. Yeah. I mean, that's kind of what Costume College was supposed to be, but it's gotten weird. Like, I don't know, it's what I wish it was. Unfortunately, there's a lot of stuff that should have been implemented with the scale growth of that was not. Okay, cool. Oh. Oh no. I try very hard to keep all of my project sewing whatever stuff tucked away somewhere. It's not always the easiest, but I've basically at this point what I've done is I've got this room, but I've now taken over the guest bedroom, which makes it much easier because that gives me a place where I can basically turn the bed into a daybed. I'm going to get a daybed frame in the very near future, but and then I can put my legs up in there and sit and quietly edit. Even if there's no one in the house, sometimes it's nice just to like close myself in a smaller room. Just like stop being so distracted. I can probably sit down and hand sew in there, things like that as well. Since sitting here is not bad, but I can definitely feel the extra weight in my legs sitting here this long, as it were. Yeah, that's the other thing. Those Costume College never was productive for a combination of reasons, but it was mostly just ended up being people hanging out with people, and I was like, yeah, that's why. That's why it doesn't work like that, because you just end up wanting to socialize half the time. Oh, that's nice. Yeah, the video that I just filmed, I haven't edited yet. It's for technically January 1st, which is a terrifying concept. Um, I went through and found a whole bunch of those fashion in the future things from way back, so like 1883, 1928, whatever sort of things. Like what they think it's going to be like in 100 years, which is just plain amusing. Like the entire point of it is just fun. But my prediction for the future of fashion, as it were, at the end was talking about the fact that between the internet and the changing mindset of society and things like that, I think that's really the future of fashion, is the fact that people are going to become much more creative and unique with their clothing on a scale that we never really could be before with the mass production of things, but that people are just gonna be like, I want to dress like a fairy every day. I'm going to, and it being considered more acceptable. Maybe not like grand, full, like, I'm wearing wings every day, but that, you know, like, that's the thing right now, is it's still trendy to be like, alright, here's how to dress, like, basically sci-fi, Star Wars, sort of whatever, but, like, keep it, you know, from being too much. And I'm like, I think that keep it from being too much is what's gonna eventually just go out the window, and people are just going to, like, have some very creative, this is how I've always, like, this is the character, this is the world, this is the creativity, whatever it is, and just going for it, because things will be available to people to purchase, and some people will bounce around, and certain genres will be popular at times versus others, but I think everyone's just going to get really creative with their clothing, because at this point, you can, and going forward, like, millennials and forward, we're like, yeah, that's fine, I don't care what you wear at workplace, man, like, as long as you can do your job. Dress like a carpet goblin every day, yeah. So, yes. So yeah, it's like things need to be functional, but that doesn't mean that they can't also be really weird and interesting. So I think that's my prediction for the future, which is not unlike some of the predictions, some of the things talked about, like, oh, you know, women will be more individual, but that, it actually goes from saying that early on, like late 19th, early 20th century, they talk about the individualism that people will start having in their clothing, but it literally trends the exact opposite way. So by the 1960s and 70s, they're like, everyone's going to dress the same. It's really interesting. Like, there are definitely things that were trends of how they predicted stuff. That was one of them. I noticed it. I don't think I mentioned it in the video, though, but that is an interesting aspect of it, to say the least. Son, where'd you come from? You were not here at all earlier. Yeah, and that's honestly most of the future prediction is like this sort of thing, but this is what we think for, it'll be more practical, or it'll be more, you know, like the pretty stuff will be relegated to evenings or whatever it may be. Yeah. I technically own a pair of jeans still. I can't remember the last time I wore them. I go through phases where I'll get some and then I'll wear them for a little while, and I'm definitely on a phase of, nah, just because I started being able to get wide leg comfy things from, you know, pre-made places without having to make them myself, and it's like, okay, I don't need to buy other types now. You wear cargo pants and get called sir a lot. I mean, if you're okay with that, that's kind of awesome. Cargo pants equals sir. Okay. I can see that. Aside from that brief early 2000s cargo pant trend for women, I don't think like, it's not a common thing to see cargo pants for women. The same level as we're used to it for men. It's just a brief. I remember a lot of people wearing them when I was like high school. Those were like No one actually put anything in the pockets. Cargo pants, just super baggy legged. Oh, yeah. So yeah, like when I lived in the Midwest and had to be out regularly, like, you know, for college or for grad school, I pretty much had entirely skirts because then I could put tights underneath and they were way warmer for the winter. Like I only had a couple pairs of. I usually had like fall weight pants, like mid weight, and then just skirts could keep me way warmer. See, I find great amusement in like confusing people gender wise. I frankly don't care about like well, I don't know. Whatever vibe I'm giving off that day is fine by me. But the discomfort that people have often with all of that, just that's where my amusement comes from. When I did the Laszlo cosplay, there were so many people that were like deeply discomforted by the fact that it was like, no, you did a pretty convincing guy there. And I was like, I made Abby's husband so uncomfortable. That was like the greatest success of the whole thing. I was like, well, that was worth it. All that time spent putting on a like making a fake beard stipple sort of thing, that was 100% worth it. If I made one person just like, I can't watch this, it's too much. I'm like, yes. I mean, I love her husband, by the way. He's wonderful, but just, you know, getting to set people to being slightly uncomfortable is always great. Like, with discomfort comes questions. And then usually we make discoveries that way. Across. How did I end up? I don't know how I ended up off. Whatever. Okay, doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. Everything's a little bit off. That's fine. This is a sample. Samples are allowed to be a little bit off. I do wonder if in the future, just because of the way that we're starting to talk about gender today and the way that it's been discussed academically, like for a while, and the way that it's now starting to trickle into daily life discussions, that because gender is presentation, gender is this societal agreement that this is this is this, da 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 da. If it won't gradually just come to mean your aesthetic, your like rather than a this or that or even this other thing, like it just gradually becomes a what sort of aesthetic you want, which also goes along with my like future of fashion, where it is very individual expression, so no longer becomes a this or, you know, option C. It just becomes a like what's the vibe. It's like, that'll still take a while before we get anywhere near that, but it's already dramatically different than it was 20 years ago, so, you know. Fashion doesn't exactly... What are you doing, ma'am? Fashion itself doesn't exactly change very quickly, but how we're viewing things is starting to. So, I don't know. I'm very curious to see which way things move and swing and what happens over the coming decades. Which hopefully I can see as many of as possible, because research. I'm not done researching yet. Things are still happening. Okay. Pretty decent. I'll probably need to do more, but... Okay. So I've gathered up a little bit more. I haven't tied all of it off, but I've gathered it a bit more, so that way I can... There. Granted, I lost one of the knots over here, but I should still be okay. It's only popped through one level. Right? I'm the same way. Like, she, her's fine. Like, every once in a while, I'm like, it feels more they, them day, but it's less I want to be this, and more just like, if someone calls me that, I'm cool with it. Because some days I'm like, I'm she, her, but sir is wonderful. I would like sir. Handsome sir. Like, there's, bless her, there's somebody that they talk with regularly. I'm not gonna, like, specify anything else about that, but she, you know, specifically terms me lady, and, like, uses very feminine compliments and descriptors, and, you know, beautiful lady or whatever. I'm just like, this is not on her. It's mostly just me being like, I don't really like that. It's not, like, something about the way, like, the phrases and terms that she uses, I'm just like, it doesn't feel happy to me in the same way. I'm not like, oh, don't call me that. It's like, I don't care. It's just not, it doesn't give me any, like, joy to be told those terminologies and have them apply to me. And I was like, whereas if someone was like, oh man, that's super handsome, I'd be like, yeah. So, right. And that's what I mean. Like, it's just a very different approach to things. I always struggled for a long time to find what pretty was for me, and it always felt, whenever I finally got to pretty and the clothing, I felt very weird and it didn't feel right. But I don't dislike wearing feminine clothing or anything like that. I'm just like, I just don't feel like I'm the sort of person that can achieve the etherealness of pretty in that same way. I feel a little more, like, the way my friends tend to describe my closer friends is more like the descriptors tend to be related to fae sort of stuff. And I'm like, that seems appropriate. I feel okay with that, because it feels less gendered in a way. It's less a matter of attractiveness and more just a matter of, like, not being able to pinpoint down the weirdness, but, like, in a pleasant way. Oh. Okay, so the way I do this one, we're gonna start. Let's start there. All right, so if I do that, then I come down to there. That makes the most sense. Okay, so let's start up here. Yeah. And I mean, I'm sure a lot of people would describe certain things that I've worn as pretty. I've just never, like, that. It doesn't feel like that really was ever quite the point. I don't know. Accomplishable? Something about it's just different. Okay, so I go over two of them, but only come up through one. Okay, that's what I'm supposed to do here. It's like, it's not like I don't like long dresses and things. I'm just not ruffly. I don't like little girl pretty. I think that's it. I don't like the sort of pretty that you would apply to, like, children, which tends to be, like, ruffly and fluffy and princessy. Like, I always wanted to be a princess when I was younger, but I didn't want to be a princess. I think it was just because I read Paper Bag Princess too many times. I was like, I want to be a princess with swords. Like, I want to be... Like, I liked fairy tale clothing, but that was different than, like, princess like, I don't know. I never dressed up as Disney princesses. Just, like, I'm trying to, like, I think it's one of those, think back through your Halloween costumes as a child, and, like, what did you wear? And I'm like, that, honestly says so much. Like, so I was like, I think the first one that I ever chose for myself was like Minnie Mouse or something. I don't know, it was like 2 or 3, whatever. But I remember dressing up as, when Hocus Pocus came out, I wanted to be one of the Hocus Pocus witches, so we kind of came up with our own version of it. And I went as Cleopatra one year because we were doing that in history class that semester, and I was super into understanding like ancient Egypt and all that sort of stuff, and so I went like very not historically accurate Cleopatra. But I was like learning, I was like 7 at the time, so I was not gonna fully understand all these things. And went as my gerbil one year, including the fact that she'd always chew apart paper towel tubes, and so we made a giant cardboard tube that was chewed apart. And what else did I do? I'm trying to remember what other... I was usually very creative about those things. I don't remember most of them, now that I think about it. But I don't think I ever went as, like, a Disney princess or a princess in those sorts of ways. I know I did costumes every year, I just don't remember what they were. Oh, there was one for a second there, and then it flitted away. I did a lot of historical figures. Now that I think about it. I think there was stuff in that range. I don't know. I don't recall. Definitely, like, did stuff every year and made things, but they were never, like, pretty things in that sort of sense. Like, I remember being okay with that, but it was more like, I'm elegant, like Audrey Hepburn elegant evening stuff. That was the closest I got to pretty. Alright, so the next thing I do is jump over to the next 2. So it's those 2, and then these 2. Get stitched together. So that looks... It comes down to about there, maybe? We'll try that. Oh wait, no, I have to go into the middle. Ha ha ha. Yeah, I definitely did like a Jasmine thing, but it wasn't specifically being Jasmine, it was just like there was a Halloween costume in the pattern book that was available for it, so we went with that sort of thing one year, but... yeah, because belly dancing. My mother did belly dancing back in, like, the 70s. Look back, I'm like, yeah, things were different. But, learning. Let's see, what else? What else did I do? I know I made, like, historic costumes, but I don't remember wearing them for Halloween. Like, once I got to middle school and high school. Trying to go through all of them. I was like, nope. Care Bear. Oh, that's cool. Yeah, we usually made stuff. Also, like, when I was younger, like, pre-made costumes weren't readily available. Just, yeah, like, early 90s, they were just becoming a thing, but not, like, really prevalent. Yeah, like, I do remember being really obsessed with mermaids when Little Mermaid came out. I think that's fair, because that was more than just Little Mermaid as a princess. That was just mermaids in general, because, suddenly playing in the pool got way more interesting, or whatever. And, she was obviously one of the first princesses to be like, nah, I want to do my own thing. And then gradually, like, I do remember that being part of, like, the enjoyment that I had of it. I was like, oh, cool, she does what she wants to do in the sense of, like, this is her interest and she's gonna fight for it. And it was like, no, why'd you have to fall in love with a boy? you could have had so much. I was always so disappointed. Like, I know that's the story and therefore that's what it has to be in a sense, but I was always like, oh man, she would have been so much cooler if she had just been independent. I remember thinking that as a kid. I was always so disappointed in the choices of, like, so many characters and stories, because I was like, here you go again, making bad choices. Like, you could have done better options here. Like, you didn't have to go along with what they're telling you to do. You just have to be smarter than them. Come on, guys. Just getting mad at characters so much. There were so few characters that I identified with as a child. Like, still to this day, there are so few characters in media that I ever feel like I identify with, or find familiarity with. The only one that I remember from when I was a kid was Gadget, Rescue Rangers. Is the only one that I remember being like, I want to be like Gadget. That was it. Yeah. Oh yeah, Sorcerer is somebody from a book. Oh yeah, totally. Ooh, buttons. Yay, buttons. 57 is nice because you can use them in so many places. Yeah, I love fantasy is always going to be one of my favorite genres just because regardless of the story, there's always more effort in world building than there is in so many other things. Especially when things are set in the current modern world or whatever, there's just not effort for people to build the structure and framework around the characters that they're putting. They just kind of like, oh, people will get it. And it's like, yeah, people may get it now, but they forget that people don't live in that city and they won't get that thing, or they don't have that sort of lifestyle or know those sorts of people, and so they won't get that. And in 10 years, no one's going to get half the stuff. Like, you go back and watch older movies that are set in modern places and didn't do the effort to build the framework for the characters to exist in and explain things at all, just assumed the audience would get it, and you're like, this feels dated. I don't understand half these jokes or whatever. So that's why I love fantasy. They take the time and put in the effort to make sure that, you know, they actually build things up that are sensible. Otherwise it ends up not being great fantasy, and then you can tell really fast. Oh yeah, pre-Disney. Just nothing but Little Mermaid Seafoam. It's great. And I definitely knew that story before I saw the Disney version, so I'm like, yeah. I definitely already had my doubts on whether or not I was gonna go. Yeah, the only like Hallmark movies that Abby has managed to get me to sit down and watch are the ones where it's like, oh yeah, then they time travel back to medieval times. Then we can just make fun of like how much it doesn't make sense and things like that. I'm like, yes, okay, I can do that. Because I'm all for cheesy, horrible, not accurate medieval fantasy type stuff. Like, I fully grasp it is a fantasy world unto its own, and I'm totally cool with it not being realistic. Like, that's fine. I get that. There is this vague medievally world that we have created as a society that just exists kind of within our version of it that isn't realistic. It includes dragons and other weird things, and I'm fine with it. It's its own, like, reality. It's cool. "5 Minutes on Cooking Wenceslas." Oh god. I learned how to play the piano on that song for some reason. I think it was just because it was one of the only song books that we had a really old keyboard piano, and I do mean really old, when I was a kid, and definitely older than me. And I remember playing Good King Wenceslas on that just because that was one of the only songbooks that we apparently had for it. I don't know why we had that one, but Ever After, yeah. Oh, muscle growth. Removing your hand crank on your room. Jeez. Oh, man. I've been helping on a, like, I don't want to say it's a Lego set because it's not actually Lego, but one of those, like, somewhere between Legos and Connect sort of build sets. And I can feel it when I wake up in the morning. Because it's like, we're doing it in the evenings, and I'm like, my arm hurts when I wake up in the morning now. Oh, yeah, it's because I've been putting effort into popping things into place. Like, things you don't think about. Yeah, I love good cheesy, like, fantasy movie stuff where it's just completely unrealistic. Love it. Love it so much. Because they're not trying to be. If anything, you can, like, use that as, like, a teaching moment for a lot of really bad tropes. You're like, yes, see how we dress all of the poor people in mud and brown. Yes, this is a comedy trope. All right, moving on. Right, finally getting the hang of this thing. That one's fun. And then you go back and do like more rows of it. Like wearing brown clothes is fine. It's just one of those like they only had brown because somehow that was the cheapest option. It's like you realize it's not cheaper to do necessarily. It's just there's so many cheap natural options. They're not going to be like 1980s vibrant levels, sure, but also they're not all going to be brown. It's just that a lot of older dyes, when you let them sit for hundreds of years exposed to the elements, yes, they do turn brown. So I think it's just a matter of like what's left over, because it's literally just been dug out of like a bog pit, hundreds of years later, and they're like, oh look, it's all brown. It's like, it's been in a bog for 500 years. I think even the person that was in the bog for 500 years is nothing but brown. I think we're allowed to assume it's changed. Yeah, you can get some really vibrant yellows, reds. A lot of places there's things that do blue really well. It may not be, maybe more like woad blue, not like super vibrant, but it's something. So many things for dyes. Yeah, I know. It's a dangerous topic. Okay, so, and then do just like I was doing, but we're reversing up and down, so that way, or just offsetting, so that way we're ending up meeting up with the other one. Haha. Alright, this one's pretty cool. I like this design too. I don't like all of these, that's gonna be the problem. But at least now I know what I'm looking at when I look at the, like, old, extant examples. I'm like, okay, I can see what stitch is where and how to do that. That's all this is. I'm going to try and base a lot of what I do off of originals, but if I don't know how they did the stitches, then I don't know how to replicate anything. Rusty muted orange. Like in natural dyes? Oh, I totally did that wrong. Let's undo that. How did I manage to mess that up that badly? It wouldn't be too far off from a matte red. But I don't know how to tone, if that's something that's easily toned down. But I'd look into matte root if you're trying to look for naturals. There might be something off of that, because it's a pretty rusty, like, it's considered a red, but it's pretty orangey. Dharma Trading has a whole bunch of natural dyes that are really easy to use. So if you want to experiment without getting too serious, just look at the natural dye section on Dharma Trading. That can give you a taster without too much intensity. Oh, dang it. I had an idea. I don't need those. Curses. I was like, I should totally get some natural dyes and try something natural dye wise from Derma and da da da. And I was like, oh, but I'd have to get some clothing. And then I was like, wait, shoot. I do declare had that white dress and linen that was still an option. I don't know if she still has any of those. They were up there like at least a couple days ago. I was like, shoot. Like, back out of the room, Nicole. Nope, nope, nope. Alright, this is going pretty well. This one takes up a lot of space without taking a lot of time. I like it. It's nice. From what I can tell, all of the that was stupid. All of the originals I'm looking at seem to have the gathering stitches behind them still. I only judge this by the fact that they're not trying to make things actually function elastically. They have, like, openings and buttons, and everything seems pretty stable. So it doesn't look like they're using it for elasticity purposes like you can in some of this. Oh, neat. I love ballet costumes. It was definitely one of my favorite things growing up. We went to a lot of ballets and stuff like that. One of those, like, barely alternate realities where I end up making tutus somewhere, I have a feeling. Like, that doesn't seem too far off. Cool. I like that one. This is coming out really pretty. I am thoroughly enjoying this experimentation today. Oh, I definitely am, because it's afternoon. I am getting distracted enough. Okay, let's take a look at this. I would like to do... Part of me wants to do another row of these, but that's just because I feel like it, not because I actually need to. I'm crunchy today. So that's where we are currently. There are different designs. And, like, obviously both this and this can just keep being extended, either separating rows out or just mass. I have considered putting labels and things. I actually kind of find it more amusing to, like, think of it being that way. So, fun story. The guy that I learned how to make leather breeches from, that's, like, one of his specialties. And he runs a leather breeches shop at Williamsburg. They do other stuff too, but they really specialize in leather breeches, and he taught me how to do that. And he has seen his work being sold as antiques. Like, it's just one time he's like, came up on some fancy auction house, 18th century leather breeches, and he's like, I made those like quite a few years ago, and they're not the best quality. And so he's like, I know who I sold those to too, but that person's out of the thing. So basically what had happened is that guy had got out of the, out of reenactment, sold them to somebody else. We don't know who, and whether it's that person or somebody else down the line. They probably, like, died, and the family was like, this antique. Like, from what we could tell, it didn't seem so much that it was, like, done intentionally. Just literally whoever was going through this guy's old stuff, he may have also collected antiques, like reenactors often do. They might have thought, oh, these are original, and it was like, I had to go disappoint some people. So yeah, no, 100%. But being honest, I haven't, and I might have to do that So I'm going to be selling a lot of my costumes this spring. Just because I've realized I don't need to keep them. And so I might have to put something in all of them. Like I might embroider my initials or something somewhere inside. So it's just like my tag thing. Just because it's never really been that much of an issue before, because my stuff was either going to people that I know and knew it was going to get worn out because it was everyday wear stuff, or stuff that wasn't the best quality, like wouldn't pass for historical at any point. But I'm just now reaching the point where I'm going to be selling a bunch of stuff which I do feel is historically accurate enough to pass. But I don't know. I don't think any of them would easily pass at this. Like, it's still like, if you don't really know what you're looking at, maybe, but the difference in fabric quality is so dramatic. And the way things age and things like that is just hard. So if we're talking anything pre like 1900, it's really hard to pass it. But I don't know. I could definitely see stuff like that ending up on like eBay or Etsy or whatever, and people not knowing enough and getting close enough. Okay, so I did that one. There's also a version of this which is like done. I think you do the traveling underneath. Yeah, you travel inside of the tube to do it. I don't really like that one as much, but I guess it's a thing. I don't know if I'll bother doing a sample of that one. I might. Surface honeycomb versus... I guess I should. Okay, in reality I should stop, go make myself a sandwich. I should do a smocking video. This was part of my like sample testing. So this is like a leftover from something else that I made, which would be related to something that could be smocked. I'm trying to figure out a like way to make a video that won't just be... So here's the thing. When I make videos that are like big topic things that I think would be generally popular to lots of people, they do pretty well. When I do things that are more like, I learned how to smock, or or like the most recent video where I was like, I went to, looked at all these shoes in a collection or whatever. It actually starts off doing really poorly, and it comes up to about middle level. Like everybody, it's very popular with the people that watch me regularly, but it doesn't really stretch as far. And so I've been trying to figure out how to make this thing that I just made and the smocking thing that I want to make, or one of the smocking things that I want to make, something a little wider reaching as a topic, whether I research something or whether I make it a little more colloquial. Like I was like making my Victorian ghost costume to walk around the house in, sort of thing. Like, I don't know. So I've been trying to figure out where it's going to lead me. So I have a reason to do all of this enough, but we'll see. I definitely want to do smocking for something. It just may not be immediate. And one of it was just like, how difficult is this going to be? It's not difficult. It's definitely time consuming, but it's not difficult. I mean, it's only been a couple hours of this though, 3 hours. So smocking anything in 24 hours doesn't seem like a feasible option. Part of the problem is like I can't like it's the part of the reason I did this was so that way I can actually see how much it condenses with that like size of gathering so that way I can figure patterning out for like if you're smocking an entire neckline, how big do you cut that in order to... And I'm sure some of it's down to you cut it as big as you need to and you gather it as much as you need to, and you can smock closer or further apart depending on what you need. But at the same time, I'm like, I feel like it would make more sense looking at this to adjust the size of your gathering in order to make sure that you have the same distance between your actual gathered up, because like you don't want to make these way bigger or way smaller. And so you're going to have a set distance of 15 gathers, however big they are, come down to this size. So that's the math that I'm trying to, I think, spend some time on, is how tight do I make the top stitches, and therefore how tight, because there can be you can have tons of depth to this. But so I can make it that deep or that deep, and it's going to take a lot more or a lot less. So I think that was the experimentation that I was doing, is here, how far apart do I want the tubes to be? So And I think that's going to be universal regardless of the fabric, unless we're talking about super thick fabric, which is not a good idea. So most of my fabrics are going to be, you know, this or slightly lighter weight. But this gives me what size of stitches, therefore how many gathers, and there I can figure out, all right, if it needs to be this big in its final form, that means I need this many gathers, and I have this many inches, so my gathers need to be this size. So, math! So yeah, that's the other thing that I was playing around with. I was like, I need to do some samples. So, ta-da! Samples! I need to do the other bits, but they're all pretty straightforward after this, to be honest. I just need to do them to see what they look like on here. This is a nice contrast in terms of like thread color. Just pops just enough, so. One front piece of the stays are done. Hooray! I kind of dread making stays later this year, but I think, truly and honestly, I'm going to machine stitch the channels, because that's the point I'm at in my life. Oh, little flower things. Okay, cool. Feather stitching? Oh, neat. I'm not going to do that. Okay, cool. I've learned a lot. Oh, let's see. What can we look at the one in the book and see what stitches they are now? Now, so this is upside down, but example of one. So it looks like they have the first thing I did on the edge, but just single of it, and then they do a couple rows of what I did here, kind of the, where am I going? Offset. There we go. So it looks very similar to what I've got there, just one row instead, and then they go back to that, and then they do this, but they do it with a little bit more carry to it, like up down. And it's interesting because this is a great example. This looks like I don't know if you'll be able to see or not. I can't turn it too much. Looks like these are much deeper gathers because they almost start to flatten out into like little pleats. So I'm guessing this is pretty deep gathers in order to get that. But yeah, they do that honeycomb. They just do it with a little bit more travel height-wise as they do it, so it ends up being more like little squares. But yeah. Okay. We'll see. Now already it makes so much more sense. I can see exactly what they did. I can look at these stitches and go, ah, that's what that stitch is. Cool. And they have very deep pleats. Cool. See? This is why you just play around with things before you take on a big project, little samplers, this is going to be my thing for 2023 is do samplers. Because, like, there's a fair amount gathered into this distance here, but, like, if you wanted more, you just have to do bigger gathers in order to get more in. Cool. Hooray! I could totally do, like, a larger... like, not larger space of these, but if I continue this and then cut it out, this would actually be, like, really fun to, like, frame up in small scale. So I could totally do that and then stick it up on the wall for reference. Yeah, and that was, like, they move into the honeycomb stuff next. That's the next thing that they show how you do where you're moving up and down within. So that would be the next one that I'm going to experiment with. Is what is technically called honeycomb. But yeah, no, this was pretty straightforward. Oh my gosh, is this where I got that from? Okay. Ma'am, you've already had your lunch. I know I need to eat mine. Do I need to get you trained as like a service dog so you can be like, you're having a sugar crash, I'm gonna bark at you? Because I feel like that's what you do with me. Sometimes I feel like that's what you do with me. You're like, hey mom, you need to eat. Oh my goodness. You are so stinky. Why are you so stinky? Oh, yeah. Give me that. Smell like a dog. This is the art of manipulating fabric. Yeah, I know. The art of manipulating fabric. Colette Wolf. I don't know. It's been around for a long time. I do know that. No, we're done. Shh, hush. I don't even know when the version I've got was. No, this one's 1996. No, I know. Just a minute. But there's a whole bunch of stuff in this. It's not just... It's gathering types. A whole bunch of different types of gathering. A whole bunch of... Is there not like a... Oh, there it is. Contents. We have controlled crushing, which is gathering and shoring. Supplementary fullness, which is ruffles, flounces, godets. Systematic folding, pleating, smocking, tucking, then filled reliefs of cording, quilting, stuffing, then using darts, mixed manipulations, So, highly recommend this book. It's just one that I've had forever. I don't know where it came from. I can only assume maybe, like, my mom, grandma, something. I don't know. But it's very useful for a lot of things. Bailey is a Bichon and Cavalier Spaniel mix. So, love me and love me now. But yeah, so, but it's, like, the methods are pretty clear, so. Okay. Hey, go. I don't know where you want to go, but go. I'll be there in a minute, I promise. Just give me a moment. The art of bork. Yep. Just wait. I get it. I'd pick you up, but frankly, you do smell pretty awful right now. I clearly need to trim you and give you a bath. Yeah. I know, you do. You smell like your food, which is not a compliment. Because it smells like beef. And, like, not a pleasant way. Like old beef. That's what happens when you get it on your face. Okay. So, on that note, literal, I'm gonna say goodbye to you guys. I'll be back, if nothing else, next Friday. I am planning on doing a live for my YouTube in the week between Christmas and New Year's. I haven't decided what day. I will put it up on Instagram with a vote. And so that one will be a little bit more formalized, and I'm just gonna be, I think, looking at some of the new shoes that I've got and talking about shoes and just answering whatever questions. So there will be a more formalized one that week, but there will continue to be these as well. So, especially as I'm doing more and more hand sewing in the future. So if I'm doing more smocking, you guys will definitely be hanging out with me for that. Because that is one of those things where I only have to film a small portion of it and then just keep doing it. So. Oh, yourself. All right. I'm going to go eat lunch. Thanks, guys, for hanging out, and I'll see you again soon.